Welcome to Podkey Slopcast, where agent workflows, token economics, and AI risk all collide. A lot of AI talk still swings between sales demo magic and job market apocalypse.
The interesting part is the machinery underneath, how people actually work with agents, who captures the value, and where the constraints are getting real.
The workflow story here isn't really about one magical model, it's about interaction design. Long-running monothreads matter because they keep a whole workstream in one place. If context compaction works well enough, that means less chat sprawl and fewer cases where crucial decisions disappear into thread graveyards. That sounds mundane, but it's a real bottleneck. A lot of AI friction comes from constantly rebriefing the system instead of continuing the work. Same with voice rambling plus steer controls. The claim isn't that speech-to-text is revolutionary on its own. It's that messy human thinking can enter the system earlier, before it's polished, and then get corrected while the model is already moving. If that holds up in practice, idle time drops. You stop treating prompting like a one-shot exam and start treating it like co-authoring with interruptions allowed. The stronger claim is about explicit goals. A goal-driven agent behaves less like a chatbot waiting for the next turn and more like a worker with a standing objective. That's plausible, but only if the goal is specific enough to constrain behavior and the tools are reliable enough to act on it. Once you give an agent controlled access to files, browsers, Slack, Gmail, or GitHub, the center of gravity shifts from text generation to evidence gathering. At that point, tool choice becomes part of intelligence. Reading logs, running tests, checking live docs, and comparing contradictory sources is closer to real knowledge work than answering a clean prompt from memory. External memory is the other half. Storing distilled insights in something like an Obsidian Vault synced to GitHub is basically an admission that thread memory is useful but fragile. That matters because compression and deletion are not edge cases, they're normal. So if preferences, rules, and status live outside the thread, continuity survives the interface.
Then you add scheduled heartbeats every 30 minutes, and now the agent isn't just responding, it's polling, prioritizing, and reporting back. That's where self-sustaining loops start to appear.
The upside is less supervision. The trade-off is governance. If an agent can continuously inspect inboxes and team channels, then permissions, audit trails, and escalation boundaries stop being optional admin work and become part of the product itself. On model performance, the headline is parity pressure. Composer 2.5 landing around a point from top-tier systems on major benchmarks suggests the frontier is crowded enough that raw model quality alone is a weaker moat. But benchmark proximity is not the same as identical user experience. Reliability under tool use, long horizon execution, and failure recovery can matter more than a leaderboard delta. Pricing is where the story gets sharper. If comparable runs cost under $1 instead of 5 to 11, then a lot of premium positioning gets pressure tested fast. And the market shift away from flat subscriptions toward token billing changes behavior. Once every long context, every verbose answer, every retry, and every autonomous loop has a visible cost, ROI discipline stops being theoretical. That will probably cut both ways. It may punish waste, but it can also favor teams that can instrument and optimize usage rather than teams with the best abstract ideas. One under-discussed asset here is data exhaust. Platforms can learn from how users prompt, steer, edit, approve, and abandon work. That usage trail can become proprietary training material. If that's true at scale, then product adoption isn't just revenue, it's also a corpus generation engine, and that can compound into a serious advantage without matching the biggest compute spend. The consultancy angle is where incentives get awkward. If firms route client workflows through outside model providers, clients may be paying for automation while also leaking valuable training signals upstream. The foxes in the henhouse line is obviously loaded, but the underlying concern is straightforward. Who owns the derivative value created by all that token traffic? Token arbitration layers are one proposed answer. In plain language, treat tokens as a governed commodity, not an invisible utility. Decide who can see the traces, who can train on them, and who captures the gains.
The split between model labs and agent labs is fading because each side keeps invading the other's turf.
And public perception moved faster once reasoning models became widely accessible. DeepSeek R1 mattered not only because it was capable, but because people could actually try that capability cheaply or for free. That kind of exposure does two things. It lowers skepticism rooted in unfamiliarity, and it raises expectations about what baseline AI should now do.
Some of the market reaction was clearly hype-amplified. But the stronger claim is simply that broad access to reasoning shifts the reference point. After that, mediocre chat starts feeling obsolete.
The five-stage cycle here is useful less as psychology theater and more as a map of recurring overreaction and underreaction. People dismiss the tech, then panic, then overshoot into deterministic doom, then slowly recalibrate against what actually deploys. That pattern feels familiar because it keeps happening.
Claims about 10% of jobs or half of entry-level white-collar roles changing within about 18 months are attention-grabbing. They may prove directionally right in some sectors, but they're still forecasts, not completed facts.
And the enterprise data is a reality check. If roughly half of enterprises bought AI tools but only around 12% got measurable value, then adoption is not the same as transformation. That gap suggests the bottleneck isn't belief anymore, it's integration. KPMG's Client Zero idea points to the likely answer. Agents have to be embedded into operating models, decision rights and workflows, not bolted on as fancy summarizers.
On security, model-generated exploit chains are a bigger step than simple vulnerability spotting. If a system can propose, test, and refine a full attack path, that starts to resemble senior research work. That doesn't mean automated offense suddenly wins by default. Defenders also get better tooling, but it does raise the ceiling on what less experienced operators can attempt.
Now add compute scarcity. If usage keeps climbing and token-heavy workflows become normal, then tokens stop feeling infinite and start behaving like a constrained industrial input. A token tax sounds weird until you hear the policy logic: price waste, reduce energy demand, and capture public revenue from a scarce resource. Whether that would improve efficiency or just create new distortions is still an open question.
The labor angle is easier to understand. If data centers are going up anyway, communities want jobs, infrastructure, and bargaining power attached to the build-out. That's not anti-tech, it's a fight over who shares in the upside.
The through line in all of this is that AI is getting less abstract. Workflows, costs, ownership, and constraints are becoming visible enough that the easy narratives don't hold up for long. That's it for Podkey Slopcast. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.